Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I believe that the right book at the right time can change lives, and that all readers should read children's literature, especially adults. So, that's what we do here on the KidLit Love podcast. We celebrate all things children's literature: picture books, early readers, middle grade, and young adult novels for readers of all ages. In each episode, we'll talk with children's literature authors and discuss their books, their hopes, their dreams for readers, their writing process, and much, much more. Whether you're an adult reading to their inner child or connecting the young readers in your life with fantastic books, you've come to the right place. So grab a notebook to build your TBR, and let's get to today's episode of KidLit Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the KidLit Love podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, your KidLit loving host, inviting you back to another bookish conversation with a children's literature author. Today, I'm talking with Rebecca Gardyn Levington. Rebecca is a children's book author, poet, and journalist with, get this, a particular penchant for penning both playful and poignant picture books and poems, particularly in rhyme. Yes, listeners, I stole that from her website because I think it's the most wonderful, whimsical way to introduce someone who has so much fun with words. She is here to talk about a couple of new releases. She's already the author of multiple picture books, including Whatever Comes Tomorrow, Brainstorm, Little Dreidel Learns to Spin, and Right Here, Right Now. Today, she's going to talk to us about her newest, Finding Forgiveness, Some Days I'm the Wind, and I Will Always Be. We have got a lot to get to in this episode, so we are going to get right to it. Rebecca, welcome to KidLit Love. I am so glad you're here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super nervous, yet super excited to be here. I love talking about books, and let's just do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So, to give listeners a little bit of context, we actually met at a children's book festival where the book that I ended up purchasing, I Will Always Be, just jumped right out at me in the sea of books that I was walking by. And so I'm just so glad that we were able to coordinate schedules and get on the call today. And we have a lot of books that we could mention. You have been busy, Rebecca.
That is true. That is true.
Before we get to the books, I do just want to find out more about you. I would love for you to give us a little bit of your backstory and how you journeyed your way through children's literature to having all of these releases coming soon.
Sure. So let's see. It all started back when I was born. No, I was always a writer as a kid. I loved writing. I loved poetry. I was constantly scribbling in a journal. I still have many of the journals from when I was a tween and a teen, and I would take poems that I loved and I would write them in my own hand in my journal, like copy them, and then I would try to change them up and make them my own, adding new words or taking words out or changing the subject matter, but doing the same style. So I was just, I don't know, there was always some connection there between poetry and I always loved writing. But as I grew up, I didn't think of writing as like something I could do as a job. And it's weird because I was an avid reader. I was always reading, but it didn't like connect to me as a kid that like there are people in the world who write these books for me. I don't know why that didn't happen. And it didn't happen in college either. I went to college, I went to UCLA, and I was a communications major because that seemed sort of tangential to writing and whatever. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I ended up going into advertising, which seemed creative yet businessy. So it seemed like it was something I should try.
Yeah.
And it wasn't quite the right fit. I ended up moving to New York. I worked in advertising for a little bit, but it just never fully felt like it was me. And so I ended up going back to school to to become a journalist. I went to NYU for journalism school and got my master's and was working as journalist for various newspapers and magazines. But I never felt like it was like too rushed for me. Like it was, run, 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 get the story, run, run, run back to the newsroom when I was working at newspapers. And it just felt chaotic. And I am somebody who loves words, as you mentioned in the introduction. Like I love playing with the words and letting them marinate and letting them come to me and like play with them. And being a journalist just didn't work. When I worked in magazines, it was a little better. I had like 3 weeks to do the story versus 3 hours, but it still wasn't quite the right thing for me. And so when I got married, I started having my children, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to take a break. And so I did. I was raising my children, and we were reading lots of picture books, of course, as we do. And I loved the ones that rhymed. And it was very reminiscent of myself as a kid, loving the rhyming books and loving poetry. And so when my kids got a little older, I decided to enroll myself in a class that was local, and it was called Where Do I Begin? Was the name of the class. And I was
That's a
like,
good title. I
it
saw
was
that on
such a,
the website. That's a great
and I'm like,
title.
wow, it's like they're talking to me. I have no idea where I'm going to begin. I knew I loved writing. I knew I didn't want to go back to journalism. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I enrolled in this class, and the teacher was a middle grade author. And she encouraged me to look at, because every time she gave us a prompt, I would come back with a poem. And she's like, clearly you're a poet. And she's like, did you know this? And I'm like, kind of, but I haven't done this in a really long time. And she's like, well, some of these could be picture books, I think. And I was like, really? And it never like connected.
Yeah.
And so she told me about SCBWI, and I went to my first conference in New Jersey that summer, which was 2016. And it just opened up my eyes to this whole world of children's books. And I was like, oh my gosh, look, these are the people. These are my people. Like, I couldn't believe it. And I was like, I took a seminar or a session with Lori Degman, who's an amazing rhymer. And I was like, everything she said, I was like glued to her. I was just so amazed by the things that she was doing with words. And I was like, okay, this is totally it. And that was it. And I never looked back.
Wow.
And here I am.
Wow. You found your people, you found your thing,
Yeah.
and you literally dove in, right? Because you just
Yeah.
said, oh, and now I'm here. I need a little bit more from there.
Oh, okay. Right. Well,
I want.
I was trying to keep it succinct. I can go
Oh,
on.
but we love the backstory here on the podcast. Um, and because we're talking about a couple of your newest books, I would love to hear, like, how did you get that first book? What was that first book? Like, give us a little taste of what came before the books we're going to dive into.
Okay. Well, so my first published book. So kids always ask me, like, how many books have you written? And I'm like, okay, well, how many books have I written, or how many books have I published? Right?
Right.
Those are totally different things. So there's many, like hundreds of books in the files. Um,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, but as it turned out, my very first book was called Brainstorm. And the way that one ended up getting published was, this is like crazy turn of fate, or I don't know what the right word is, but Lori Degman, who I went to see that um, seminar at that New Jersey conference, 2 years, 3 years later, it was 2019, I ended up applying for a mentorship with her. It was called PB Chat, which no longer exists, but it was a mentorship program, and she chose me among two other people to be her mentee.
Wow.
And so I was working with her for like 3 months, and she at the end of the 3 months was like, do you want me to introduce you to some of my editors?
Oh, yes.
And I was like, yeah, of course.
Wow.
So she introduced me, one of them that she introduced me to was Sarah Rocket at Sleeping Bear Press. And I immediately sent her one of my manuscripts, which she passed on. But she said, I really love your writing. I love your rhyme. If you have anything else, send it my way. So, of course, I did.
Yeah.
And then she rejected that. And then I sent another one and she rejected that. And I sent her another one and she rejected that.
I think you had hundreds ready to go.
But I had so many in the drawer. So I'm like, she kept saying she likes them. So finally I sent Brainstorm and she's like, ooh, I like this one. And I'll condense the story because it really was like 6 months between the time I sent it and the time I got the contract, or the time I got the deal. But yeah, so they ended up acquiring that, and that became my first book.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
And that,
I love hearing
for listeners, I'll just describe it. So Brainstorm is basically an autobiographical story of a little girl who has trouble coming up with ideas, and then she imagines a storm of ideas, raining down from the skies. And so at the end she is flooded with possibilities to write about. So
oh,
true
this is
story.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I imagine lots can relate to wanting that and maybe having that happen. Oh, I'm just always so in awe, and I've said it so many times, listeners are probably sick of it, but hearing the backstories and the journey always just makes me appreciate the fact that we're holding them in our hands, right? You could have decided after that first no that that just meant this wasn't for you, and you didn't. You just kept writing and kept digging in, and what fate, right, that the workshop you went to ended up being the person you got to mentor with, which ended up giving you that editor. It's just meant to be. It was meant
Totally.
to be.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It was amazing. Yeah.
Ah, so you have a couple that are already published. You have multiple books that are coming out. I'd love for you to talk about, before we jump into the specific titles, just a bit about I guess I don't know if philosophy is the right word, but just your thing. Like, what's your thing? What threads all of your ideas together? Because there are some beautiful connections between them, and I'd love to know what you would have to say about that if you had to just capture all of the writing that you have done since then,
Mm.
in a way that kind of articulates those connections.
Well, I would say that, so in the beginning when I was first writing picture books, I was very focused on the rules, and I was very focused on, oh, I need to have a character who tries something 3 times and fails, and then it would, and those books never sold because they were never really connected to me, like, in an authentic way. So I would say my thread is like feelings. Like, I generally start my stories with a feeling or an emotion that I experienced either as a child or as an adult, that I'm trying to express through. Usually it starts as a poem. It doesn't really start as a story. And if you notice, most of my books are in the first person
Mhm.
or second person. I only think I have Little Dreidel Learns to Spin, I think is the only book that is in the third person. Because it's really about, and I know this sounds very like egotistical, but it's all about me. It's all about like a feeling or an emotion that I'm trying to grapple with or express or like, come to grips with. It's like a therapy thing for me.
Yes. Yes.
And so that I think is a big thread throughout all my books is that I'm trying to grapple with some sort of emotion, and usually through writing that poem I can, at some point, it becomes like, wow, okay, this feels universal. This feels like something that other kids or adults will connect with. And then that's when I sort of think about what story could there be. But most of my stories, quote stories, really come through the illustrations more than the me setting out like here is the story. So it's interesting. Like
It it makes
yeah.
so much sense to hear you say that because as a reader, I felt those emotions. Like I could literally feel them, whether it was in finding forgiveness, where we've all been in the situation that that character has been, or just that feeling of this is how I am right now. This is how I am here. This is all of me. This is all that I have inside me. The feeling really does come off the page. And I would argue it is because of your words in addition to the illustrations.
Thank you.
But
Yes.
the illustrations for all of the books we're going to talk about today, they're so very different, but so very beautiful. They are a perfect complement to just the lyricalness that you have on the page. They're beautiful and gorgeous.
Thank you. Yeah, I got very, very lucky with the illustrators that have been chosen to illustrate my books, or our books, I should say, because it really is ours. Like there's no way that these books would be what they are without the illustrations. They're incredible. And yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't be more happy.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about three books today. And I don't normally do that on the podcast, but you just have so many new books coming out at similar times. So
Yeah.
instead of taking a really deep dive into one, we're just going to dive into three of them. Starting with Finding Forgiveness.
Okay,
Oh,
great.
this one went right to my heart. I would love for you to tell listeners a bit about this book and the inspiration behind it.
Sure. Okay, so Finding Forgiveness is coming out August 5th. So I'm not sure when this is airing, but either before or after that. And it is about two sisters who have an argument, and it follows the older sister as she sort of grapples with the feelings of guilt and trying to find the right way to reconnect with her sister again, and how all of those feelings that come with doing something you shouldn't have, and then having to both ask for forgiveness and also forgiving ourselves, because that's a really important thing too, because we can't change what we've done, but we can move on from them. Like we can forgive ourselves and learn and try not to make the same mistakes again. And so this book is about that. It's also set with a backdrop of the Tashlik ceremony, which is part of the Rosh Hashanah festival, which is the Jewish New Year. Um, and the ritual is that on the afternoon of the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the congregants will go to a park or someplace that has a flowing body of water. And the tradition is that you take breadcrumbs. Some people do pebbles because of, you know, uh, not wanting to feed the birds or whatever in that area. But when I've done it, it's always been breadcrumbs. And as you are holding the breadcrumbs, you're thinking about the things from the past year that you have regret for, and you know you look at the breadcrumb, you think about those things, and then you throw them into the river, into the body of water, and you watch them float away. And it's sort of a symbolic ritual of literally to holding that remorse in your hands and actively getting rid of it. And I just think it's such a beautiful ritual, and so I wanted to bring that into this whole idea of forgiveness, and bring that to readers, because I don't think a lot of people know about that if you're not, Jewish, or and some actually I've met some Jewish people who don't have never participated in it. So it's I just thought it would be an interesting thing to bring to readers.
Yeah. Oh, it was a beautiful thing to bring.
Thank you.
I did not know about that ritual either, but what I tend to do, especially around the New Year time, but whenever I need to let go of something, I'm a huge fan of Beth Kempton, who has written just some beautiful personal development books. And one of the things that I've always done because of her is kind of write down the things that I need or want to let go of from the year before. And then you burn the page. You burn the
Mm,
page in that symbol of letting go, and you kind of collect the dust, and then you take a smudge of it and you just kind of smudge it on the first page of your new notebook, honoring that I'm good, I'm letting go, but it has brought me to where I am today. And as I was reading your picture book, I thought, what a beautiful way to introduce this very powerful, very important kind of practice to readers when they're young, right? That is something tangible and concrete that they can wrap their heads around, yet has such emotional significance that it literally could just change so much for anyone who understands this kind of ritual. And oh, I was just enchanted the whole time, especially because I think we can all relate to perhaps saying something that we didn't mean and having that shame or that regret. And I also loved how in the context of the story, it was about holding those breadcrumbs and considering those choices that you had made, because they were choices. They just are things you wish you didn't do. But then
right.
thinking about the why,
Hmm.
so that you can forgive yourself and move forward. This is a book every adult needs.
Thank you. Well, as I said, like I write these for myself, like it's for me to grapple with, the things that I need to work on, in my own life. And yeah, forgiveness is rough for kids and for adults. Like it's a tough thing. And so yeah, I appreciate all your kind words. Thank you.
Oh, yes. And I was also thinking, this is a book that is a perfect, in addition to just being a book to read anytime, it really is a perfect gift to give to some. I was thinking in my head of, oh, if I gave this book to so and so, maybe that's my way of apologizing. It's just beautiful.
Yeah,
I feel like it needs to be shared and spread hand to hand to hand. It's just a way to help with our connections and our relationships, but then the really important one, which is the way we feel about ourselves. I
yeah.
just loved it. If, I don't want to pick favorites, but Finding Forgiveness is one of my new favorites.
Oh, thank you so much. And I have to give a shout out to Diana Mayo, who's the illustrator.
Yes.
She like blew it out of the water. I mean, she is so brilliant, and it has that perfect like classic feeling
Yes.
to the illustrations that is just so like
Mhm.
I don't know, she just brought a whole nother level to the text, I think.
I think the color palette does it too.
Yeah.
There's just something about it that you really do feel that emotion. And
Yeah,
even though it's talking about something like regret, you do just feel soothed at
totally.
the end
Yeah.
as a result of the practice that you're telling readers, but those illustrations really do contribute to that.
Agreed. Yeah, yeah. I'm so happy with it. And in fact, I'll just, little sneak peek that Diana is actually going to be illustrating another book of mine that's coming in 2027, called Looking for Light, which I could tell about later. But like that one she's going to be doing that one also. And I'm just so excited. I've seen some sketches already, and oh, get the Kleenexes out, people.
Oh no, I already need Kleenex when I read. That one's really going to get me then. All right. So let's move on
Yeah.
to book two that we want to talk about. This
Okay.
one, I mean, I loved Finding Forgiveness, but this one, gosh, this one really had my heart too, because we are multiple things and we feel multiple things in multiple ways. And this book just wraps all of it up in this big giant hug of okayness for how we feel. And that book is Some Days I'm the Wind. And maybe the tree or the snow or the seed, but give us the backstory on this one as well.
Okay. So some days I'm the wind. Much like most of my other books, started also as a poem. I during the pandemic, some other writer friends and I started actually, and Lori Degman, she's getting big shout out. She was part of it also. we did like a poem a week challenge where we each gave each other a word every week and we had to create a poem based or inspired by that word. And the word of the week for this one was mild or wild. It was either mild or wild. I can't remember. And what I always do when I first get a word is I write down all the words that rhyme with that word. And so mild and wild sort of were in my head. And I was just like, what are things that are both mild and wild? And I was looking out the window and it was like a beautiful, peaceful day. And I was just thinking, like, some days the wind is very mild, it's very quiet and gentle and peaceful. But then there's other days when, it's crazy out there and there's whirling and swirling and it's just crazy. But it's the same wind. The wind is the same on all days, but it acts and feels differently. And so I started to make that connection between, natural elements like wind and sun and sea and rain, and how on different days they act differently. And so do we act and we feel, we have different moods and feelings. And that sort of led me down this path of thinking about my childhood and how when I was a kid I was very shy and timid on a lot of days, especially if I didn't know people. But there were sometimes some situations where I was like the jokester and I was the silliest one in the room. And but people still sort of assumed I was the shy, quiet kid, but I wasn't always. And so I just started thinking more and more about this and about how like people put labels on us and people assume things about our personalities that aren't always the truth, and how we don't give ourselves permission to always feel all the big feelings, and we label certain feelings as good or bad, and all of that together turned into this poem that ended up turning into a book called Some Days on the Wind, exploring that sort of dynamic of, we are who we are, and who we are isn't necessarily defined by whatever emotion we're feeling on that particular day.
Yes. Again, another book that is especially wonderful for kids, but I think every adult needs is the permission slip to feel all the feels, whether they're, you know, so-called correct to feel or not. I just love that it just reminds us that there's space for it all. There's space for it all. And just like in finding forgiveness, right? It's okay. It's okay. And it's all just part of who we are. Like just such a beautiful lesson to learn. And the illustrations here, I thought, how do I describe these illustrations? They're just beautifully striking. That is like the phrase that I may have come with. They are just you're just so drawn to them. So I'd love for you to give a little shout out for that illustrator as well.
Oh, I would love to. I can't pronounce her last name. Hold on, I have to look at
I
it because I'm terrible at this. But
am too. That's why I said you should introduce
okay, so her name is Dinara Mirtalipova, and I'm so sorry, Dinara, if I'm butchering it. But I've been a fan of her work for a really, really long time. She also did Katie Howe's Woven of the World, which is like one of my favorite books. It's so beautiful. And when my editor at Barefoot, Lisa Rosinski, said, I'm thinking about this illustrator, I was like, oh yes, please, please, please.
that.
I just think she's magic. And it's interesting that the illustrations are interesting because um in my brain when I was writing this book, it's obviously all about nature. And so I was expecting it to be outside, right? I was expecting all the um the interactions of the character to be outside with nature. And she did the opposite. She brought nature inside into this child's imagination, and creating this natural world within her home, and how her imagination um, creates all of this within her house. And so it's just, I don't know. It's just, I would never, this is exactly why picture books are magic, because I would never have thought of
Yeah.
what she's done in this book.
And it works so perfectly because those are the emotions inside of us. So it does make sense the way that she has pulled it all together. Just another beautiful book. One more to go.
Okay.
This is the one that first connected us together, that I found as I was walking by that table. I will always be.
Yeah.
I Oh, I love this one because I want to be so many things when I grow up still. So go ahead and tell us about this one.
Okay, sure. So this book, I Will Always Be, was actually my second book that the second book that I got a publishing deal for, but it was the sixth book that came out just because of crazy publishing
Yeah.
world reasons. Um, so this book is interesting because it came about because I was having a conversation. As a pre-published writer, I was constantly having this conversation. I'd be at some event and somebody would say, "What do you do?" And I was really trying to take myself seriously, right? I'm a writer, like I write children's books. And they would inevitably say, "Oh, what have you written? What do you have?" And I would like sheepishly say, "Oh, well, nothing's been published yet, but, I'm working on it." And I would just get these looks like, "Oh, I got you. You're just doing it as a hobby, or maybe that was my interpretation of it, but it definitely felt like,
Yeah.
you know, oh, okay, I get it. You're not a real writer. You're
Yeah.
just, dabbling." And I resented that so much. I was like, "Gosh, that's not cool. Like, I'm doing my best."
Yeah.
I really have
Yeah.
published books. And so I really was thinking about that. And there was a moment where my son was with me where one of these conversations was happening. And when they got to the point where the person said, "Oh, so what do you do?" He piped in. He was like 7 at the time, and he's like, "She's an author. She writes picture books." And I was like like struck by his enthusiasm and his support. And I was like, "Yeah, I am. I
That's
am
right.
a writer. And I will always be a writer whether or not I ever publish a book."
Yes.
Period. Right? I love writing. I have been a writer since I was 5 years old. Like, I was constantly writing, and I will always be a writer, and I will always be an author because I'm authoring books. Whether or not those books become books is not in
Right.
my control.
Right.
And so I went home and I wrote this poem about, again, a poem, and it was just the one stanza about, and it's in the book, about this little girl who is, you know, tapping on her laptop and writing in her journal, and she's writing plays and she's writing jokes and she's writing, songs, and she will always be a writer whether or not those ever come to fruition. And so once I did that one, I started thinking about all the other things, right? Like my kids loved to play sports, when they were young, and but neither one of them is going to be a professional baseball player, or soccer player, but they loved doing it. And they will always be athletes because they love doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for so many people that, I will always be that thing because I love doing it. And I wanted to write a book that was about giving kids permission and ownership over the things that they love and their passions. And they should always pursue those things, whether or not that ever becomes their quote, career or their profession. So that's what the book's about.
See, I said like, oh, maybe this is my favorite, but then you talk about each of them, and I think actually, no, it's this one. I really love this, especially, as someone who loves what I do, right? And I know I have other friends who make jewelry and other friends who are artists. I have one who's a baker. Um, And so often, I think what happens lately is we get a hobby and it's like, well, why? Are you going to make money from it? What are you going to do with it? And it as an adult, you start to lose the fact that you can just do something and be something because you want to, because it feels good, because it's fun, even if the rest of the world doesn't call you it or you don't make a dime from it, it doesn't matter. You're still the thing in your book, just like you said, it's a permission slip and it just embraces that idea. And as I was turning the pages, I was like, well, if I let all that stuff go, what would I be? What do I still name myself as, right? My little childhood self would say, I am a writer. I'm also a baker. I'm a really good synchronized swimmer too.
Oh,
Swimming
really?
in the deep end with my best friend Jody. Oh, yes. I'm a
Wow, that I
figure
want to see
skater.
that.
Right? Right? And it was just such a wonderful experience to then. And this is why I love books so much, especially picture books, because they prompt something in the reader, whether it's a little reflection or some sort of connection they make. And it just felt really good to remember all of those different parts of myself, which
Mhm.
also linked to some days I'm the win. Like it just they're the emotions that you invoke in the reader and the way that you make them feel, it just feels really, really good. And this book was like a giant permission slip to remember all of those things that I either stopped letting myself call myself or just stopped in general, and how fun that was an adult to just let yourself go back.
Yeah, I think so too. And one thing I will say, let me shout out the illustrator, Rahele Jomi Bell, is amazing, and she's done a zillion books, so go get them all. But one thing that she did that I thought was again magic is that when I wrote this book, I was imagining a different child doing each of the things, one being the artist, one being the scientist, one being the writer, one being the athlete. And she had a completely different vision of having one child doing all of these different things and trying all these things and maybe being good at them, maybe not being good at them, but loving the process of trying them and enjoying her life and trying new things. And it really just brought the whole story to a completely different level. I mean, again, illustrators are magic. And so I like what you said. It's like I am all those things too. I am not just a writer. Like I love doing arts and crafts and I love to knit and like I do mandala drawing and I do kickboxing and like there are a lot of things that I do, but I don't necessarily call myself an artist, but I should because I do art and I love art. So like, I think that it's a permissions like I even learned from my own book that I need to give myself more permission to enjoy all the different things and to call myself by those names and not be embarrassed by it or like feel like I have to do something with it in order for it to count.
Yes. Oh, there is that saying, right? That you teach the thing you most need to learn. Something along
Yeah.
those lines. And that
Yeah.
that feels fitting. So as you
Mhm.
think about these three books, and you're going to give us a sneak peek into some that are coming next as well.
Mhm.
What is your hope for readers, or what is your hope for the books? What's your hope for you? I just what's your hope as these books go out into the world?
Oh man, I mean, I I hope that they connect. I hope that there are other readers, who feel like they're being seen, right? Like I hope that they're connecting with the book so much, like you said, like that. Oh, this feels like it's being you know written for me, and I think that's another reason why I write a lot in the first person. It's like yes, I'm starting off with my own feelings, but when you use I or you in a book, you're inviting that reader to become that character and to also feel all of those things. And so I think that that is something I hope for. I hope that kids see themselves in the books and the poems that I write and that they want that then lets them feel that they have permission to be themselves and to feel those feelings. So that is probably my biggest hope.
And there's no better gift for a reader to take away. I I think. Tell us more. What is coming next? You've got some to share and I can't wait.
Oh, sure. Okay, so yeah, this has been kind of a crazy year. 2025, I had 5 books come out.
It's just amazing. I mean, congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, they weren't all sold at the same time, but that's just how it
Yeah.
happened. And so then I do have a little bit of a break coming up. Thank goodness. My next book, I have a little board book that's coming out actually at the same time as Some Days on the Wind. It's called Dinosaur Surprise, and it's with Highlights Press. And it's my first board book. It's really cute and has flaps and things, so that's really fun. And then next summer, I have another book coming out called I Wish That You Knew. And that one is like, I cry when I read it back to myself. Because again, it's about a little girl remembering her grandmother and the special relationship that they shared. And I had a very special relationship with my own grandmother. She literally was my best friend. And when she passed, I was very, very sad. And 10 years later, I was thinking back about, all the things that she missed and all the things I wish that she knew about who I am now and about my children and all of that. And so that all culminated into a poem again, that I was writing for her, basically. Just, I wish that you knew, how much how much of who I am is because of your love and because of your support and because of your wisdom. And so that became this book called I Wish That You Knew. And it also has a Jewish theme because it takes place at an unveiling ceremony, which is the ceremony that takes place 1 year on the anniversary. I'm sorry, on the 1 year anniversary of someone's passing on the yard site, which is the name for the anniversary. And so it is about that, and it is about remembering and celebrating all the love that we are so lucky enough to share with the people who love us. So that's coming next summer. And then after that, in 2027, as I mentioned before, I have Looking for Light, which is again going to be illustrated by Diana Mayo. And that one is all about looking for light in our lives and all the little ways and the small moments that we should that we can appreciate, that we're so lucky to be able to have in our lives. And throughout, even when dark things happen and even when bad things are happening in the world, there's always some sparks of light. And so that book also, and it also has a Jewish theme. I don't know. I do a lot of like Jewish themes because I'm Jewish and like,
Yeah, you're on the
you
page.
know,
It's lovely.
yeah. And so that one is also takes place with a family celebrating Shabbat, which is, a weekly holiday where we take time to appreciate and to be with loved ones and to remember what went right during our week instead of focusing on the negative. So those are 2 that are coming, and there's more than that, but I'll just stuck with that.
Do you ever just like sit at home and think about the books that just came out and the books that are coming out and think, oh my gosh, look what I have shared. Like these books, they're all beautiful. I can't wait for the new ones to come. You have to come back when
Okay.
it's time to talk about
Sure.
those. But oh, just talk about that. Meant to be, you put it off, it found you, and now it's finding all of us. It's a beautiful journey. It's a huge set of beautiful books, and I'm just gonna devour every one of them that you put out because they just make me feel good. And they're going to
Oh,
make listeners feel good too. So thank you for not giving up and just sharing all of this beauty with us. They're wonderful.
oh, thank you so much for your kind words, and I really appreciate you being, letting me do this and talk about all my stuff. And I'm very lucky. I feel very blessed that I'm able to, spend my life doing this, you know? I mean, it took, like I said in the beginning, it took me a very roundabout way of getting to do what, to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I totally found it now, and I'm just so grateful. Yeah.
And we get to benefit.
Yay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on today. And listeners, of course, thank you for listening to another episode of KidLit Love. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the KidLit Love podcast. You'll find links to all of the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at alitlife.com. You'll also find KidLit Love on Substack. That's where you'll find posts for each episode, monthly KidLit roundups, and an invitation to join my summer book club and go deeper into the world of children's literature. And if you loved this podcast and want more, you might like to listen to my other podcast called Get Literate. It's a podcast that explores all things books and reading, notebooks and writing to build a life you love. One more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast, or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish community of KidLit Love. Thanks for listening.